Good morning, friends. Hello, hello, hello. It is this beautiful Thursday that, depending on where you are, it may be snowing or raining, but just came in from outside, and here in the city, it feels like spring. I don't know about if you're noticing that, but it just has that little bit of earthy smell. The snow is retreating, and there's this beauty of life that just seems like it's ready to go now. So I hope, and so even though we are still a few weeks out from true spring beginning to blossom, it is a joy that I think today, even though we had some warm weather through all of this winter, today was one of those moments that I think where it's really happening. So. Good morning, Kristen. Glad you're here. Hope you're doing well. It's a joy to see you. Jamie, hello, hello. Glad you're with us. Karen, good morning to you. I hope things are well with you. Staying dry. Hello from snowy Maine. Yes, I hear you guys are getting slammed up there. Very nice. Well, it is March and winter. So, Vicky, hi. Oh, you've been on my heart. I hope things are finding their way in these days. So. Hey, Fanny Faye Davis, good to see you. Glad you're here. Irene, hello. Hello, hello. Glad you're with us. Good morning, everybody. Yvette, hello. Oh, the gang's all here. It is a joy. Glad you're with us. So, good morning. I see one or two more folks coming along, and we'll get there. Hey, John, good morning to you. I hope you're doing well. That this day is treating you all right there, and what I imagine is likely snowy New Hampshire, but hope it's good. All right. Glad you're all here. Okay, let's get going this morning. It is the second day of March on this Thursday at 11:11, and I am glad that you're with us and glad you're a part of this journey. That your presence here matters, that you matter to me and you matter to other people here. Whether you've ever left a comment or whether I've ever had the pleasure of saying your name or not, there is joy in your presence of being part of this journey. So I'm glad you're in it. I want to read. I want to do a little something different with this story that I want to read you this morning from the Gospel of Luke. And I want to take it from a different translation, which is the Message Bible, which kind of helps us, I think, turn the diamond a little bit to see a little bit of the difference in the story. But this is the story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. So the Gethsemane story, if you know it, is this moment of incredible despair, incredible abandonment for Jesus. But it is from this place that he goes forward into all that he will confront in Good Friday and the crucifixion and persecution and eventually the resurrection. It happens directly after this beautiful communion moment with his disciples and with all of his friends, where they have dinner together and they do some singing. There's some karaoke, they come and he leaves and they go to the garden, where and so it begins like this. Leaving there, he went, as he so often did, to the Mount of Olives. The disciples followed him, and when they arrived at the place, he said, "Pray that you don't give in to temptation." And he pulled away from them about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed, "Father, remove this cup from me, but please, not what I want, but what you want." At once an angel from heaven was at his side, strengthening him. He prayed on all the harder. Sweat wrung from him, drops of blood poured off of his face. He got up from prayer and went back to the disciples and found them asleep. drugged by grief. He said, "What business have you of sleeping? Get up, pray so that you won't give in to temptation." No sooner were the words out of his mouth when a crowd showed up. Judas, one of the 12 in the lead, he came right up to Jesus and to kiss him. And Jesus said, "Judas, you would betray the Son of Man with a kiss?" When those with him saw what was happening, they said, "Master, should we fight?" And one of them took a swing at the chief priest's servant and cut off his ear. Jesus said, "Let them be, even in this." And then, touching the servant's ear, he healed him. Jesus spoke to those who had come, high priests, temple police, the religious leaders. "What is this? Jumping me with swords and clubs as if I were a dangerous animal. Day after day I've been with you in the temple, and you've not so much as lifted a finger against me. But do it your way. It is a dark night and a dark hour." This dark night and this dark hour has given way to again and again and again to the confrontation of our own darkness, of our own moments in which we find ourselves without resource, without light, without the direction to travel, overcome in the numbness maybe of grief and simply sleeping partly through it as the disciples did, that we find ourselves in the midst of this. And the fact that we'll encounter darkness in our life is no rarity. It's no oddness. And it will often, almost always happen right after this beautiful moment of communion, or this beautiful moment of togetherness, this beautiful moment when we think we got it all together. And sure enough, things start to come unraveled and the sweater starts to fall to the ground. And we find ourselves in what the John of the Cross called the dark night of the soul. John of the Cross was a Carmelite monk in the 16th century, 16th century, and about 1540, about that. So he in his time met a woman by the name of Teresa of Avila, who was quite famous mystic. And when they met each other, they realized that the things that they were a part of needed reforming. That they were both kind of out of this Carmelite tradition, but the Carmelites, they'd kind of gone off the rails as far as they'd considered. So they both kind of pledged to try and make things better. They took up disciplines. They made John of the Cross made the brothers work harder in his little monastery than they wanted to. So much so, in fact, that they turned on him and would come to torture him. Like literally, they'd put him in the stocks and they'd beat him up because of what he was asking them to do in the midst of this. And he's responsible for what some people say is some of the most beautiful poetry in Christendom. Probably the shining star of which is the poem, "The Dark Night of the Soul." In it, what he describes is this kind of darkness that is beyond piercing. That is that some people kind of will kind of describe as kind of the obsidian plain, where there's just nothing that moves, that the house is at rest. And yet there is a flame that burns in it. And then on the other side of this, on the other side of darkness, there is great treasure and great beauty. I'll read some of it for you because it's just that beautiful. We're going a little esoteric this morning. It's okay. We'll get through it. In a dark night, with anxious love inflamed, oh, happy lot, forth unobserved I went, my house being now at rest. In darkness and in safety, by the secret ladder disguised, oh, happy lot, in darkness and concealment, my house being now at rest. In that happy night, in secret, seen of none, seeing not even myself, without other light or guide, save that which in my heart was burning. That light guided me more surely than the noonday sun, to the place where he was waiting for me, whom I knew well, and where none appeared. O guiding night, O night more lovely than the dawn, O night that has united the lover with his beloved and changed her into her love, on my flowery bosom, kept whole from him alone, there he reposed and slept, and I cherished him, and waving of the cedars fanned him. As his hair floated in the breeze, that from the turret blew, he struck me on the neck with his gentle hand, and all sensation left me. I continued in oblivion lost. My head was resting on my love, lost to all things and myself, and amid the lilies forgotten, threw all my cares away. These stories, the encounter of John of the Cross with the betrayal of his order and the brokenheartedness, the encounter of Jesus with this betraying friend and the betraying establishment of the empire in which he was a part of, and the darkness, the dark night, and the dark hour of it all, gave proof to light. It gave proof to the lack and the letting go of the continued oblivion lost, the way John of the Cross says it. That this idea that we just got to stay ahead of it a little bit. We've got to be better than we've got to just gut it out, or we've got to be able to be smart enough to overcome it. But rather the understanding that the darkness will be darkness, and that there's no beating it, there's no surrounding it, there's no kind of, but that the light will always overcome it. And so that there's an embrace of the darkness that can happen in this. This is what John of the Cross says, that in the midst of the hardness of everything, in the midst of being broken apart, well, who does he discover? He discovers God himself. He discovers the beloved, which is kind of that 16th century way of talking about God. That this beautiful unfolding of what is on the other side of all this. Now, part of this, I understand, is kind of a bit of a description of a mystical experience. Part of it is this, but it is a real experience anchored in the reality of what Christ brought into this world, and what Christ endured through this world, and what Christ has redeemed in this world, which is the darkness, the very redemption of the darkness. That it's not this thing that we just all have to endure, we all have to get through, but the fact that we actually, encountering it, find the light on the other side. There's a when I worked at Fort Eustis, I got to meet a guy by the name of Brian Ridgway. Became a good friend. We actually went sailing together. Spent some real time. I truly enjoyed Brian, and he's a good guy. He's a direct relation to a guy by the name of Matthew Ridgway. Matthew Ridgway was the first general of the second general. Sorry, Omar Bradley was actually the first, but he's really the first guy, commander of the 82nd Airborne Division. He'd become later the commander of the 18th Airborne Corps. And Brian was his relation, and so he kind of knew. He had encountered him through the course of his life. And the thing about Matt Ridgway is that he was an incredibly faithful guy, although he was probably one of the most private people about his faith. Patton had talked about his faith. Many of those guys would talk, to a degree or another openly about their faith, but Ridgway was considered extremely faithful, but at the same time, uh, he was considered deeply religious, but at the same time, deeply private about it as well. There's this one instance in which the colonels in his unit, when they're fighting their way through Sicily and through, is that Ridgway was always forward. He was he was a true combat leader. And again, he would go on to survive the war. He would go on to be the commander of forces in Europe. He would go on to be the chief of staff of the chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was. In fact, and he would come later to be one of the advisors to Johnson that would speak against the U.S. intervention in Vietnam. He was amazing guy. But he'd be in combat and he would be forward. And people, when the 2-star general goes forward, everybody knows it, and it creates a kerfuffle. Wherever the general goes, there's a little retinue of people that surround him, and they kind of show up. And the colonels would complain about this all the time. They would complain that he would get himself shot at that really for no reason, and they're saying, "Look, you're endangering not only your own life, but the life of other soldiers by being forward in that." And so they complained to one of his staff officers, and one of his staff officers said this. He said, "Look, General Ridgway is very religious." And this was the quote. He says, he reads the Bible and he prays. He firmly believes that God will not permit him to be hit before Germany is totally defeated. Later, many years later, he would write his memoirs, and he would kind of bring up this instance. And Ridgway would talk about this in essence of his faith. He would say, and this is what it was when he was writing on the matter of courage, on what it was that gave him this courage, what it was that gave him the ability to again and again and again go into the fusillade of fire and not only just believe that he wasn't going to be hurt, but being willing to stand in that space and stand in it. And he said this: "In the darkness, after you have gone to bed, when you are not the commander with the stars on your shoulders, but you are just one man, alone with your God in the dark, your thoughts inevitably turn inward, and out of whatever resources of the Spirit you possess, you prepare yourself as best as you may for whatever tests lie ahead." A little further on, he writes, "The greatest comfort for me in all that was in the story of the anguish of our Lord in the Garden of Gethsemane. If he could face," and these are Ridgway's words, "if he could face the calmness of soul, the great suffering he knew was to be his fate, then I surely could endure any lesser ordeal of the flesh or spirit that might be awaiting me." From that moment of surrender, he says this: "There was no backward glancing of happy days gone by, no inner tremors brought on by peace or the lack of it. My heart was light and my spirits almost gay." Whatever the darkness you're facing, whatever the challenge of spirit, whatever the challenge of grief, whatever the challenge of heart, whatever the challenge of body, whatever the challenge of disappointment, whatever the challenge of discipline, whatever the challenge it is you face, whatever darkness is circling round and sucking up all of the goodness and the joy and the wonder, whatever dark night of the soul it is that you find yourself in this hour and this place, whatever that it may be, a dark night and it may be a dark hour, and yet in it, on the other side of these things, is this ability, this gift to, as John of the Cross ends his poem, "threw all my cares away," that we truly might rest in the arms of our Creator and nothing else. And from that place, go to war against the darkness. From that place, execute all that God has called us to be. From that place, fill ourselves with the heart and the wonder and the joy and the beauty of this world, because of the fact that all of the cares of it, all of the darkness which we've confronted, all of the Gethsemane moments of our being where we may have sweat blood over. This is a thing, actually. Jesus actually sweats blood. There's a movement that says that, he was sweating blood. There was no like he was sweating blood. The text is actually pretty clear. He sweats blood. He is so terrified, so scared, so worried, so overtaken by what is about to happen to him, and yet commits it to God. Remove this cup from me, but please, not what I want, but what you want. I want you to hear the last quatrain of the John of the Cross again. I continued in oblivion lost. My head was resting on my love, lost to all things in myself, and amid the lilies forgotten, threw my cares away. Friends, the thing about lilies is they always die. The thing about lilies is that they're always, whatever flowers you think you're out there collecting, they'll all pass away in this world. They'll all, and the great gift and the great invitation to the Gethsemane moment, to the darkness moment, is that there is always and ever the ability to set down all our cares, to set down all our loss, and to set down all the oblivion, and to simply lean into the joy and the lightness of spirit of what it is to dwell in the confidence that Christ has overcome whatever obstacles, worries, darkness that you might be encountering already. I hope that wherever you find yourself right now, and whatever your dark night, that you can see the glimpse of light beyond it. You can see the pinprick that will give way to the gorgeousness of an entire life, an entire to-do list, an entire worry, an entire broken heart, an entire difficulty, an entire endeavor committed over to the hands of the one who made you, as opposed to you trying one more time to hold it all up. Let go. As our friends in Alcoholics Anonymous tell us, let go and let God. All right, friends, this is my hope for you today. We will be picking it up next week, but we have worship on Sunday. I hope you'll join us for that. It is at 10 o'clock. We are beginning to renew our Sunday school. We have some volunteers that are going to be working with Sunday school, a lesson each week and week out. We're doing this 14-week journey through Luke and John. So we're hoping that if you know some kids or you can invite some kids, it'd be great to begin to have a little time with them to be able to give them some encouragement and to know about the God that loves them. That's my hope for you today, that you'll be a part of that maybe on Sunday, and either way, that you'll join us back here next week on Tuesday for another 11:11. Peace and grace to you, my friends. We'll pick it up next week.